everyone. This is Matthew Geller, founder of OptometryStudents.com. Really excited to share with you guys today an interview I'm doing with a friend and mentor of mine, Dr. Albert Chun. He's the practice owner at SouthBay Optometry here in Torrance, California. I was with him for the last 3 months doing my internship, and it was pretty amazing. So this guy's got a lot of good stuff to share, and I hope everyone enjoys the interview. Feel free to comment on it, and we'll be glad to get Dr. Chun to answer some of your questions and things like that. But here it is. I hope you enjoy.
Sure. I'm Dr. Albert Chun. Graduated from Southern California College of Optometry in 1985. Did a vision therapy residency at SUNY in '86 and moved out to California. Bought a practice, expanded it, and this is where I'm at today. But the internship program here at SouthBay Optometry started out as a research project funded by VSP through SUNY to have externs rotate through a private practice with an emphasis in vision therapy. Well, I think the best advice I can give someone without actually having them in the office to teach them is always keep in mind to take into account the patient lifestyle, what kind of hobbies they have, what kind of work they do, where they're looking at work. Is it a computer at arm's length or farther? Is it closer? You have to ask a lot of specific questions about where they're looking. You might have heard me many times in the exam. What does your work entail? What are you looking at? How far is it? How long are you looking at it? What angle are you looking at it? So I ask a lot of questions specific to their work environment, their workstation, and also other things. What kind of avocations, hobbies they might have, how they use their eyes outside of the office, outside of the home, or in the home. So you want to kind of get a general idea of how they're using their eyes on a daily basis, and even on the weekends. And it helps you decide how you're going to prescribe for them.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
As early as you can, try to visit the neighborhoods or the societies or the areas of which you're interested in practicing. Visit some practices, meet some of the local doctors, shadow them during the summer, go to the local optometric society meetings. Generally these are optometric societies which are under the banner of the AOA on the local state chapter. They love to see students. Go to a dinner meeting, meet the local optometrists that show up to these meetings, because these are the ones that are involved, and some of them may be thinking about having a future associate. So it's really about exposing yourself, showing yourself in front of all these ODs and saying, I'm coming out in the future, maybe in 2 or 3 years, and I'm kind of interested in this area. Mm-hmm. So just meet some of the doctors, go to the meetings. I think that's the best way.
Sure.
It's good to be involved with the local society because optometrists will share their information. They'll tell you what it's like in the community, what works, what doesn't work. They give you pointers, so they teach you a lot. Optometrists like to share information. They're very helpful. I think some of the important things you have to figure out first is what geographical area you want to settle in. First of all, you have to be happy where you live. You're not going to move to an area that you don't like just because you can make a living there. It might work for a few years, but very shortly you'll get very tired of the place. Are there family considerations? Do you want to be near family? Or are you okay with living on your own or finding a place away from family? Weather. What kind of weather climate you like? What about practice? What kind of practice you want? What kind of modality of practice? Mm-hmm. So if you want to focus your practice on having a lot of young kids, pediatrics, you're not going to move into a town where there's a lot of retirement people. So you have to look at the demographics of the population of the area you want to move to. That becomes an important consideration as well. Unfortunately, nice places may be more congested with optometrists, and so you're thinking, gee, it's going to be a very competitive type of environment. It may be, but I think a town can always handle one more good optometrist.
Right.
Well, you have to understand that when you graduate, it's commencement. It's not the end. It's really the beginning. You're going to begin a long phase of continuing education. What I know today is so much more than I know when I graduated from optometry school. You have to continue to expand your knowledge really want to learn about optometry and eye care, and attend a lot of classes. Don't practice with your head in the sand. Get out, take a lot of classes. If ortho-K is something interesting to you, there are many classes that are given at continuing education venues, such as the AOA, or your state society meeting, or Vision Expo, or even there are contact lens sessions as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to stagnate yourself in optometry and just do the same thing that you know when you come out of school is not a good way to practice through your lifetime. Mm-hmm. You need to constantly learn, constantly expand, constantly challenge yourself. And,
sure.
and most importantly, provide better care for your patients.
Right. What has been your experience with vision therapy and kind of vision therapy as a whole, and where do you think optometry is moving in relation to vision therapy, and where we should be going, and how
vision therapy has been the love of my life. It has provided me with so much satisfaction and rewards in my profession, and it brings me a lot of happiness to see the good that I bring to a lot of my vision therapy cases. First of all, vision therapy impacts one of the most important sensory systems of how we learn. If you look at how we learn in a normal classroom, population age 5 through 12, 80% of how they learn is through the visual system. If there's any impediment, resistance among the in the visual pathway, it's going to significantly reduce the child's learning ability. So if you have the ability to improve their visual system, you're going to increase their ability to learn. Mm-hmm. Once you do that, they become much more efficient as a student, and it's always nicer if you can learn with less effort. And a child who has a lot of visual impediments, they put in so much effort into learning. It just takes them so long to do their homework, or they're not paying attention, or they have a difficult time paying attention. By removing a lot of these visual problems, you make paying attention a whole lot simpler.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Absolutely. What should a student concentrate on? Well, no one ever knows where life's path is going to take them. Okay, so as you go through optometry school, if you're first year, keep an open mind. Don't have this narrow vision of what optometry is. Be broad in your thinking. Take it all in. Optometry has expanded in its scope so well that it can, if you choose a specific path, there's so many different paths you can take. Optometry is so wide open now. It makes practice life so exciting. So in answer to your question about what's the best way for a young optometrist to come out and get into practice, well, there's many ways you can approach it. You can start out as an associate, work in a practice that you enjoy, that has the modality of the type of practice you like. Mm-hmm. You can be an employee of an HMO or a retail setting. Some people do well in that. Some people prefer private practice. You can purchase a practice. You can purchase a practice code. There's always somebody out there who's willing to retire and wants to turn their practice over to someone young and new who's excited and want to take over for their patients. Sometimes you want to work your way in as a partnership, and the senior doctor will want to phase out over the next 10 or 15 years and have you slowly take over. You could open code. To me, I think that's the most difficult way to open code. Finding a stall, building it out, buying all the equipment, it's a tremendous financial outlay. Most places are not willing, at least most financial institutions are not willing to loan you the money unless mm-hmm. you can get family loan. It's a big risk to open code. You're better off buying a small practice that may not be the most appealing from a cosmetic standpoint, but if it has a patient base and it's got some patient flow, that's always worth something. And it could cost less to buy one of those smaller practices on decline as opposed to opening code.
Right.
I like to think of myself as practicing in the old style, where you sit down, get to know your patients, get to know their families, speak with them a little bit, and that way you can kind of explore what their visual life is all about, how they use their eyes, what kind of things they get into as hobbies. Once you get to know the person better, they almost become your friend, or they become your friend, and they're more willing to come back and stay with you for the long haul. Sure, I don't see as many exams in a day as maybe some of my colleagues. They might see maybe even twice as many patients on a single day as I do. But when I went into optometry, I said I wanted to enjoy myself. I'm not going to kill myself in practice. I'm going to enjoy my patients.
What organizations have you been involved in outside of your practice and have stuck with?
Well, I always believe in giving back to the community, and maybe even giving back, and also giving back to my profession. So on a professional level, I am an AOA member, a California Optometric Association member. I used to be more involved in the local society when, for the first 10 years of my practice life, I probably went through every office position in the local society except for maybe the secretary position and the treasurer position. I'm involved in the Torrance Lions Club. I used to be involved in the local Chamber of Commerce, but I enjoy being with my local Lions Club. It helps me keep a pulse on the local community. I get to know the local community leaders. It just helps to be involved and being a part of your community. My advice for speeding up the exam time, well, you have to really be thinking in your mind ahead. You know, I remember when I began practice, I kept thinking about what tests I had to do, what questions I had to ask. You have to be forward thinking. You have to be very comfortable. And soon, it won't take too long, it'll become automatic. It'll just flow right out of your head. But in the beginning, it's a thought process, and you have to think ahead and not pause and then think at that time. While you're doing a test, think about what you want to do next. Think about the questions you've asked the patients and how they responded. But you always have to be one step ahead of where you're at.
Gotcha.
Students, they get caught up with being mechanical. They have to do certain things a certain way. And they'll come back and they report to me, I'm finding this, and I'm like, what's the chief complaint? And they're like, geez, you know, stumped.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're here because they have a chief complaint, and you have to address that chief complaint. It's nice that you gathered all this data, but how does that address back to the chief complaint? Students who become involved in projects beyond just being optometry students, I've always had this belief: if you put your time into something, it pays you back many times over. When I got involved in the local society, sure, I put a lot of time in, and in those days we didn't have computers. I had to get on the phone and dial each phone number to each optometrist to call them. It's come back and helped me many times. These fellow optometrists are wonderful colleagues. They've helped me out many times, and I think I've benefited that way also. It's always impressive to see a student who devotes a lot of time not only to their studies and learning about optometry, but also to other activities peripheral to optometry, such as optometrystudents.com, getting involved in website development for the promotion of optometry. It certainly looks very impressive because I think it helps you understand the more global aspects of the profession. You know, you're not just focused in on the clinical care. You know all the political ramifications, the future of optometry, how it's interacting with other professions,
Sure.
how it's looked at in the whole scheme of healthcare delivery systems. So by being expanded in your knowledge base, you keep a pulse on the whole area of healthcare. And those leaders at the forefront of this knowledge base will be in better position to handle changes as they come towards the field of optometry.
Sure.